Yeah. What's going on, everybody? I'm back doing DWCS, Dana White's Contender Series. I guess it's episode 4, but week 5. I didn't do one, or episode 4 for the Club and Sub podcast of Contenders. Week 5. I did not do a show last week because of the long weekend, but just finished taping everything. Gonna chat it out briefly. Kind of excited to get into it. Last week was a really, really nice week of MMA for me. We went up small on about 1.4 units on Contender Series. I had, hold on, let me pull up my results. Sorry, guys, all over the place. Not middle of the work week, start of the work week, unfortunately. But yeah, so last week for Contender Series, I ended up 1.4 units. I had 1.75 units on Gage Young, plus 174. Didn't go great. I thought Young, the fight was kind of trending the way I thought it would. I thought it would be tough to wrestle him, tougher than it ended up being for Salcold. I thought Young could land the harder shots, which he kind of did. I just thought he had a real shot to finish the fight. But I thought his gas would hold up a little bit better than it did. And then I had a unit on Jordan Santos, plus 315. And that obviously hit. Will Curry, basically an MMA fighter, WMMA fighter, I should say. And that was nice. So with that being said, we'll jump into it here. Dana White's Contender Series this week being headlined by Navajo Stirling and Philip Latu. But we start the card off with Corinne Laframboise, a Canadian legend who's 8-4. She's 35 years old. She's taking on Nicole Cagliari. And the current price on this fight is Laframboise minus 120, Cagliari minus 110. Initially going into tape and after taping Cagliari, I was almost positive I'd bet Laframboise. And there was like a part of me that still thinks it was awesome meeting you and AC as well, Mushroom. There is a part of me that still thinks this is a fairly good stylistic matchup for Laframboise. Cagliari doesn't have the best takedown defense in the world. She doesn't really do the best job at retaining guard. Most of her attempts to get up tend to be via, power and explosion. Not really any kind of technical get-ups. She got mauled by Kay Hansen about 5 years ago. Now, Kay Hansen was in the UFC, and it was 5 years ago. She was 22 at the time, so you forgive that a bit. But I saw, some of the same characteristics in her grappling 2 fights ago against Carolina Jimenez, who she did end up beating by armbar, but she spent a lot of time on bottom in that fight, and I didn't think looked great. Which, you would think would be bullish for Laframboise, and that's what she wants to do. She's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, a former IBJJF world champion. She wants to come out, get on top of you, beat you up, and sub you. I think where I am kind of... And so, with that dynamic, it's well, you'd obviously want Laframboise, right? More experienced fighter. She's fought decent competition. But first of all, she's 35 years old, as I mentioned, so trying to get on Contender Series here. Second of all, even more bearish than that, she had a baby 4 months ago. That's pretty hugely concerning. Third of all, in her tape, she hasn't really improved that much from, how she was way back in the day. And she's a Brazilian top team in Canada, not a very good gym. And so, I wouldn't expect at 35 any big improvements. And so, that's a pretty bearish macro structure there. You have 35-year-old Corinne Laframboise, 4 months removed from a baby, hasn't really improved, taking on a 27-year-old in Nicole Cagliari, who is clearly improving. Cagliari should have a fairly large striking edge here, in my opinion. Good Muay Thai striker, hits pretty hard, honestly, for a female, decent work rate. I mean, she's going to own Laframboise on the feet. Laframboise, she's tough and she'll throw big shots, but her footwork's awful. No head movement, just very, very easy to find the target on. Even in the grappling, Laframboise should have a big edge. I do think that, but she's never been the most positionally sound grappler throughout her career. She gets reversed a lot. And I will say Cagliari is very, very explosive. You go back to a fight ago, Carolina Jimenez, obviously Cagliari won that fight via armbar. Corinne Laframboise subbed her in her last fight via triangle choke. But prior to subbing her, or not her, sorry, but, that was kind of a little janky. And then 3 fights ago, Laframboise was fighting Malina Hermansen, who's a kickboxer. She almost got rear naked choked in that fight. She did get rear naked choked in 2019 by Jamie Lynn Horth, who I don't really rate much as a grappler at all. So I don't know. Laframboise, she tries really, really hard. She's got okay physicality for a female, but she's got no striking at all. Dangerous grappler, but she's not positionally sound. And when she's not on top, she tends to give up position. her best performance is probably not dying till 20 seconds left against Manon Fiora. But like Manon Fiora she's obviously very, very good. You don't hold that against her. But she got dominated in the grappling in that fight. So I'm not sure the grappling is going to go as easy as I thought it might coming in. Honestly, with the macro structure I described, which is like a 27-year-old here who's getting better, taking on a 35-year-old 4 months removed from a baby, I actually think there's a lot of upside on the Cagliari side. I don't think I'll play her. And, Tristan mentioned, like the under -125. I think that's interesting because I do think if it turns out Corinne can come out here and, dominate the grappling, she's probably going to find a finish here. Conversely, I think Nicole's got plenty of upside to finish this fight herself, both on the feet and, like I said, potentially on the mat. Malin Hermansen is, not a grappler, and she almost rear naked choked her. So, yeah, I kind of lean to the Cagliari side, honestly. The more I think about this fight, with that said, I don't know if I can get to a bet on Cagliari. It's just like Laframboise does have the better grappling pedigree, and Cagliari is not a good grappler. So, it's kind of scary to fade that and pick him. But I just think there's so many red flags on the Laframboise side. Moving on, very interesting fight here. We have the Georgian kickboxer Otar Tanzalov. He's currently priced at -221. He's taken on another undefeated prospect, Josias Musasa out of Africa. He is +181. Very, very interesting fight here. It's one that I have gone back and forth a bit on. I think I may eventually get to a bet on the Musasa side. Tanzalov, he's the more refined fighter in general, to be honest. He's a bit more experienced. I believe he had a kickboxing career or a Muay Thai career prior to going to Pro MMA. I could be wrong about that, though. But he's a more technical fighter, very, very good kicker, strong calf kicks, strong body kicks, throws a lot up to the head as well. Okay grappler. He's the better grappler in this matchup, I would guess. Wrestling is okay. Top game is kind of just, lay and pray from guard, to be honest. So, and in the context of this fight, Musasa seems very athletic, so I don't really think he's super likely to get held down. But, there's no question here. Tanalov, he's got the better pedigree. He's the more refined fighter. He's fought a better level of competition, and he's a bit more experienced. So, all of those things pretty good for him. In a vacuum, he's got better skills than Musasa. The thing is, Josias Musasa, the guy looks... he's only 25 years old. He's very, very young, but he is explosive. He is very, very fast, and he looks like he hits very, very hard. On top of which, it's kind of one of those fights where I think it's the rare time, the line is perhaps overpricing Musasa's inexperience. And by that, I mean, he's got what, a friend of mine would refer to as variance blockers. AWMD saying, am I on Marab? Wait till Wednesday to find out, man. But I haven't bet that fight yet. Musasa's got stuff what I would call variance blockers. And what that means is, or variance adders, not variance blockers. He does leave a lot to be desired technically, but he's got great physical intangibles. He's very, very fast, very athletic, and he hits like a truck. And that can offset a lot of stuff. While Tanalov is the more technical fighter, something I noticed in tape is Tanalov, he doesn't do a great job at making you miss him. I've noticed if you keep the pressure on him, you can kind of pin him down into a phone booth against the fence. And when he's there, he's very, very easy to crack. And Musasa strikes me as the kind of guy who's going to kind of try to come forward hard here. When I have seen Tanalov forced to use a lot of lateral movement, he's seemed to slow to me pretty dramatically. Now, I will say, I think his cardio is a little suspect, but I actually think he manages it fairly well. He does a good job, just kind of separating out his bursts and not using too much energy. But with that said, I do think, he's not a guy who's going to come out here and land 80 to 100 strikes. He just hasn't shown that. And so, I look at the fight and I feel Tanalov's the better fighter in the aggregate, but I think he's giving away a lot in physical intangibles here. I think both. I don't really like the way Tanalov reacts to shots, to be honest. But with that said, in the same vein, Josias Musasa fought a guy who was 0-1 a couple fights ago in Gazmir Giata, and he got dropped twice in that fight. What I will say about that is Giata, he seems to have reasonably heavy hands and seems like a decent athlete. And Musasa, obviously, very, very early in his career, you can see he's making big improvements in each of his fights. I'm fine with Tanalov being a small favorite, but I kind of If the line keeps growing, I might bet Musasa. I actually think his upside here is a lot higher than the line, whereas I think Tanilov's upside kind of is the line. Like if I thought there was a chance Tanilov would get 12 minutes of control, I wouldn't have much interest. But I actually think Musasa's defensive grappling doesn't look horrible to me, at least versus the level of competition he's fought, which admittedly has been very low. But Tanilov's offensive grappling doesn't look very good to me either. He will shoot, but he's not really a threat to like pass and maul you. So yeah, I lean to the Musasa side. I'm not sure if I'll get to a bet or not, but we'll see. Moving on, we got Yusri Belgari. He's making his second appearance on Contender Series. He is taking on Taiga Iwasaki. Current price, Belgari chalked up big time here. He's minus 550. Comeback Iwasaki plus 400. I think this is going to be Belgari all day. There are issues with Belgari's game that I don't like. Namely, he stands straight in the air, and if you get inside, he's there to be cracked. On top of which, if you get this guy flat on his back, he can get just stuck there. It looks bad to me from the limited footage of it I've seen. Iwasaki, I would kind of call him a generalist. You know, the guy's got meh striking, at least meh by UFC standards. Not a great grappler, but he's gone to it against some shitters in the past. I don't think his grappling is at a level, though, where he's going to be really out grappling UFC caliber talents. And I'm not even sure whether Belgari is a UFC caliber talent, but I'd be a little surprised if he's having easy grappling success. And on the feet, I just think this is one-way traffic. You know, Belgari, I have issues with his defense, but he's got very, very good offense. He's gigantic for the weight class. Let me see. What are his dimensions here? Yeah, 6'5", 79 inches at 185 pounds. Just gigantic. And he hits really, really hard. I think he should be. AW saying, can he finish this generalist? I think he can finish him. I think he probably will finish him. Let's see. What are props? Do we have props on that yet? Yep, we do. Belgari inside the distance is minus 190. That's a bit heavy. Minus 180 by KO. I mean, he should finish him. Maybe we get a better number than that on domestic books, but I doubt it. But yeah, I mean, I think Belgari's going to run through him, to be honest. I think the line's pretty justified. Moving on, we got Cody Steele taking on Quemuel Otani. Steele currently minus 206. Comeback on Otani is plus 166. I don't know if I'll get to a bet here or not. I kind of lean to the Otani side slightly, but Steele of the two obviously comes from a grappling background, submission grappling background, I should say. I think he wrestled in high school, but he's spent most of his professional career as a submission grappler. With that said, what I will say is I shouldn't even say I don't think. He's not like a submission grappler that's on like a crazy, crazy elite level, like a Demian Maia or someone like that. The Craig Jones, those guys. He's fought a lot of, or he's grappled with a ton of elite grapplers, but he's rarely won in those appearances. In terms of MMA, Steele's game is pretty interesting. He grapples. I'd say he probably attempts 46 takedowns per 15 minutes. Doesn't really chain his takedowns, though. And he doesn't, so far through 6 MMA fights, he hasn't really seemed like the kind of guy who is, it really cares that much about enforcing, a heavy grappling pace. He'll grapple, and if you get up, he'll step back, and then he'll try to brawl with you. On the feet, I think Steele's kind of like a brawler. He's got decent hardware, not good defense at all, but he seems to be able to take a shot. I think he hits reasonably hard. So, I mean, he's a high work rate kind of guy, Steele, which is kind of what you want to see. High work rate guy with pretty good grappling. Taking out Quemuel Otani, he is 15 fights into his career. He actually, believe it or not, is the guy that submitted Alex Pereira in his first ever MMA fight. Otani, a jiu-jitsu black belt, but one who, other than that Pereira, notably that Pereira fight, I have seen more get out-grappled more than out-grappling people. To me, Otani, he's more a striker than anything else. He kind of fights out of that, almost, he's not from the Fighting Nerds, but he almost has that like Fighting Nerds karate-ish stance, bouncing in and out, a lot of low kicks, a lot of jabs, looking to set up the right hand. He can be cracked, though. If you get inside this guy, he is there to be cracked hard. Defensive grappling, to me, is his biggest weakness in all likelihood. I don't think he's got great takedown defense. He can get up, depending on the quality of grappler he's facing. But I've also seen him, I saw Wilmer, what's his name? Yeah, Wilmer Lemos a couple years ago, or 5 years ago, actually, just completely maul him and eventually submit him. And that's the last time anyone's really proactively grappled him. So it raises the question of, what the specter of what does Otani's grappling look like here if he's taken to the ground against Cody Steele, which, if Cody Steele was smart, I think he will go there. But, we've seen Steele, just like I said, he's accepted kickboxing matches a lot in the past. Even in terms of the actual grappling, Steele obviously is a fairly high level black belt, but I don't know. His grappling doesn't seem as good as a lot of like jiu-jitsu specialists when they come over here to me. Like, he just doesn't seem to have great control. He doesn't seem proactive about getting in the back or flattening guys out. Tends to shoot single entries, as I mentioned, not chain them. So I don't know. Like, I'm looking at this fight, and it's kind of hard for me to get to a bet on Tony. I kind of want to, but I'm going to probably pass it just because I think the upside in this fight for Steele is just so high if he does grapple proactively. Because I just, Tony could have made improvements in the last 5 years. Obviously, he's 31. He was 26 last time he was grappled bad. So, like, you can't rule out the possibility he's made big improvements. But, I mean, Steele's pedigree is enough that if he actually comes out and he's, like, hell-bent on grappling, I think he can probably have success, maybe eventually submit Tony. The thing is, as I mentioned, he just likes to strike. And I think on the feet, I think Tony is a slightly better striker. I think he hits a bit harder. But, I mean, Steele's upside is what it is, Like, the last thing you want to do is bet like plus 175, plus 180 on Tony and then watch him just get mauled for 8 minutes and submitted. So, yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to pass it. I do kind of lean the Tony at the side. Sorry about that. My dog is barking. Moving on, though, we have got we have the main event. Navajo Stirling, Philip Latu. This is a really good fight, in my opinion. I am somewhat tempted to take the stab on Latu, though I may pass. Both of these guys are kickboxers. Navajo Stirling, he's out of city kickboxing. Only 4 fights into his career. I couldn't really find a ton of tape on him. What I could find, he looks solid. Decent work rate. Hits pretty hard, I think, though not crazy, but, pretty good power. And he's pretty big for the division. It's light heavyweight, but he's got basically an 83-inch reach and a 6'4". That's like almost a John Jones type frame. I think that is a very beneficial, it's obviously very beneficial to Stirling and will be in the UFC and likely in this fight. But yeah, it's hard to know what to take from him. He's originally a Thai fighter and now he's fighting, I say, kickboxing. He looks good, but it's hard to know how much to take out of it. Philip Latu, conversely, he is fighting out of Elevation Fight Team. He is also a kickboxer, a Samoan kickboxer, as it turns out. He has been fighting in CFFC lately. He's done pretty well. He's 6-1. Latu, I also think pretty high volume, actually pretty good cardio, I think, for a big guy. I've seen Latu manage to push the pace, pretty heavily in some fights, like into later rounds. So not many, like 2 fights, but cardio looks good by light heavyweight standards, to be honest. In the context of this fight, it's just hard to know, what to make out of it. Obviously, there's a big size edge here on the Stirling side. He's a bit younger than Latu is. But Latu is the more experienced fighter. He's fought the much better level of competition. And I expect, unless he gets knocked out, it's probably going to be a competitive fight. Both of these guys attacked all 3 parts of the body here, low, medium, high. I think Stirling likely, but again, given the lack of tape, it's hard to say definitively, has the better hands. But, Latu's hands are dangerous as well. I guess the way I'm looking at it is Navajo Stirling is not going to grapple Latu. If he does, I don't think he's going to hold him down. Latu actually looks like he's got pretty good defensive grappling. I don't think Latu will try to grapple Stirling either, so they're going to bang it out. Sterling's got the higher pedigree in theory, being out of city kickboxing, and obviously he's a dangerous fighter and younger, but Latu looks decent. I mean, honestly, he looks like a decent striker. I don't really see any reason he can't be competitive on minutes here. My biggest concern with Latu is he does look a bit available to crack, especially guys who throw straight shots, which Stirling does. But I think Sterling's kind of available to crack too. So, yeah, I lean Stirling just because I think he's got more upside. I think he's probably improving quicker. But I don't know. I could see this fight playing closer than the line. I think Latu's got some sneaky upside himself. Ian says taking this analysis cutting with Sean Bitters. Yeah, Sean's a good guy. Really nice breakdowns on DWCS. But yeah, honestly, it's a really tough fight to break down because I feel like to bet Navajo Sterling up at minus 260, you've either got to know something or you've got to be making some really, really like significant projections about like what you think he is, and you can't make those cannot make those projections off of any real data. Conversely, we actually have a lot of fights of Latu here. He hasn't fought like a great level of competition, but like Dylan Potter's fought a ton of different guys, you know. He's fought guys that have beaten real fighters. He's got 7 wins. He's got a bunch of kickboxing fights. You know, we know Latu is an experienced mixed martial artist and martial artist in general, and he's training out of a good gym as well. You know, Elevation, it's not my favorite gym in the world, but they've got some good strikers out of that gym. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of think, you know, the more I talk about it, like I kind of think there's so much more upside at the price for Latu than there is for Stirling. Like, I'd be shocked if you told me that Stirling's true price was 80%. Whereas if you told me, like, I kind of view it as Stirling's true price is kind of capped near what his money line is at the moment. Whereas if you told me Latu's true price was pick him or even slight favorite, I wouldn't be like blown away. I think Stirling's a bit faster and a bit more athletic, but I don't know. I think it could be a competitive fight. So I'm leaning towards the Latu way. I'm leaning towards Musasa. I haven't really. Actually, while I have everybody here, we can just go through totals here. Sterling Latu, I actually kind of lean to the over just a bit, even though they're two big light heavyweights. But I mean, both have gone to decisions with some lower level fighters earlier in their career. Both pretty competent. So I could see them just kind of, you know, feeling each other out for a bit. No interest in the Steel Tony over. It's 1.5 minus 185. If that came lower, I might be interested in it, but I think that's about right. Belgari, Iwasaki. I actually am kind of interested in the under here. Over 1.5, currently minus 155. The under 1.5 is plus 125. You know, some people were talking about it in the chat, but Belgari is just so much better and so much more dangerous. It's like if he fights to his capabilities, I think he's going to finish Iwasaki like pretty early in this fight. So I might end up playing that, especially if there's liquidity at it tomorrow. Tanzalov, Musasa. I actually sort of lean over there because I think Tanzalov's going to avoid a fight. It's plus 100 for over 1.5. But again, I lean Musasa, and a lot of that's probably front-loaded. So I don't know if I want to take both over and Musasa. And I lean the under for Laframboise Cagliari. We'll see what the domestics open up props at tomorrow. They're usually a bit friendlier. So, yeah, guys, that'll do it, though. No bets yet. I lean Musasa. I lean Latu. We'll see what happens. I'll obviously post if I end up making a play on them. But yeah, guys, drop a like, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Lags would appreciate it. I'll be back with Lags on Wednesday talking UFC 306. Sick card this weekend. I myself will probably come back on Thursday, and we have another Bellator card this weekend, Bellator London, and I'll break that down as well. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys did well this past weekend. I hope we crush tomorrow night. Take it easy. God bless. Peace.